Dear viewers, hello and welcome to Online Talk. Thank you for joining with us. Today we have invited a very well-educated young lady and the author of the brand new book called Stigmatized. She currently works as the Policy and Budget Officer at the International Rescue Committee, Mrs. Rentsenkhand Enkh-Amgalan.
Hello, and thank you for accepting our invitation. So, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on this online talk, Anar.
Okay, so please tell us about your current work and what are you doing currently?
Yeah, of course. So I work in the global humanitarian sector, focusing on refugee empowerment programs. I work at an organization called International Rescue Committee. It's based out of New York City and works in about 40 different countries around the world, but also within United States as well. I work within the Crisis Response, Recovery and Development Department, focusing mostly on program quality initiatives and strategic resource allocation projects internationally.
Okay, so let's start our interview with your childhood. So you were a very hardworking child, and what were your childhood dreams and goals, and do you think that you have achieved them?
Yeah, so as a child, my biggest dream was to learn English language really, really well so that I could win full scholarships to attend one of the best universities. And once I have that good quality education, I always want to contribute my knowledge and lived experience to reduce poverty in the world. So I would say the first two goals that I just mentioned, while those have been achieved, the third part, which is about contributing my skills to this global mission, is actually a lifetime goal, right? It takes like lifetime of commitment and dedication to continue fighting for these social causes and helping those in need and vulnerable communities. So I would say I'm still on that path and on that path to achieve that goal. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. You have a work experience at the big global organizations like World Bank and United Nations. So what kind of skills have you received in those places?
Yeah, I've been really lucky to have been exposed to many different projects at these organizations. And I would say working in these organizations, I've gained very diverse set of skills, not just in technical sense, like policy knowledge or technical sense, but also issue expertise areas as well. For example, at the World Bank, I worked on gender equality and inclusion projects, working with economists on research projects to identify gender gaps and proving that with evidence so that we could use that data to advocate and influence local decision-making across different countries across Africa. So that experience, first of all, helped me to gain knowledge around gender equality, right? And also inclusion. But at the same time, I also learned about working with data, how to effectively analyze it and how to effectively present it to make sense out of it and advocate using that data. And working in the United Nations, I got to visit Uganda, and that gave me a whole new perspective to a policy area, which was focused on affordable housing project for people who have been internally displaced because of civil wars in Uganda, for example. And before visiting Uganda, I used to think that I know what poverty looks like because as someone who grew up in an informal settlement myself in Mongolia, I used to think that poverty is like this, right? But then visiting Uganda, it actually gave me a whole fresh perspective into what poverty can also look like, right? So I realized that poverty is actually not a universal concept. It manifests itself differently in different contexts. So working in the United Nations gave me that new perspective into policy and this concept of poverty and how it manifests itself.
So while at East Tennessee University and New York University, you have done a lot of organized several fundraisers, and events to help the local community. So could you tell us more about it, and which one made you the proudest?
Mhm. Yeah, so as a college student in the US, one thing that I feel really proud is when I founded and led a student organization called Student United Way. So it's basically a student-led organization that does fundraising activities and that organizes volunteering projects among college students and contributes to local community. So I interned in Washington, D.C. At an organization called United Way Worldwide. And when I was interning, I got this idea and I learned more about how in US colleges, starting these organizations is actually like a meaningful way to contribute as a college student, as a young, passionate individual, right? So when I came back from Washington to Tennessee, I started organizing these events to promote my idea, and I recruited like 6 board members. I recruited like a faculty advisor to help me set up this project. And for one semester, we organized 2 fundraisers. Like we did our spaghetti dinner ourselves, and then sold it for a little bit raised price to raise funds, and then donated that to a local organization, for example, and also we used that as our starting fund for this organization. We did a few volunteering projects as well. We partnered up with local nonprofits, and that organization still runs and still exists. So it's something that I felt really proud of, like starting something from scratch and seeing it actually create this impact that I hadn't imagined. That was really empowering.
So have you done any fundraiser in Mongolia, or are you planning to?
So currently, I'm writing this book and about my story, overcoming tuberculosis and the associated social stigma attached to it. And I hope to publish this book also in Mongolian language in Mongolian market, in addition to international market on Amazon. So as part of that book, I hope to organize fundraiser to fight tuberculosis and stigma in Mongolia. But right now, I'm really much focused on my book first. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about your book. So it's called Stigmatized, which has been inspired from your overcoming the tuberculosis. So when did you find out that you had the tuberculosis, and how long did it take to recover from it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as I said, I wrote this book about my story, and when I was 15 years old, basically right after I finished high school, I was diagnosed with pulmonary tuberculosis, and at that time, it was considered very advanced stage because the TB bacteria had created a pretty large cavity in my left lung. So it was a very scary and traumatic experience for me. And medically speaking, it took me 6 months to recover. I stayed in a hospital for 2 months, and then I took antibiotics for 6 months. So in total, including the 2 months in the hospital, it took me 6 months. But that's medically speaking, right? In terms of like the consequences, in terms of how it impacted me, my identity, and my well-being, I could say that it took me almost a decade to feel comfortable enough to share about my story, to process what had just happened, to feel myself again, basically. So yeah.
I think that one of the most unspoken issues in Mongolia is that people live with stigma unconscious. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, unfortunately, stigma is a huge issue in Mongolia, and it doesn't just stop at tuberculosis, unfortunately. It applies to so many different other areas. For example, mental health, right? Even like saying the word Sharhat, which is the only mental health organization in Mongolia run by the government. Even saying that name carries stigma, right? And being poor can also be stigmatizing in Mongolia because being poor can be viewed as you are lazy, or you are dependent, or you are dirty, or it just becomes this personal blame instead of considering this whole array of societal factors that are contributing to it, right? So just being poor can be stigmatizing. So think about being diagnosed with tuberculosis or other diseases, right? Now, even with COVID, it's becoming really stigmatizing as well. So stigma is like everywhere, and it just unfortunately not only between like person to person, it's also very much institutionalized. It's deeply absorbed into the local culture and stereotypes and norms. So I really think that to end this stigma, we need to speak up about it more, and we need to empower those with the lived experiences and engage them in these decision-making processes. For example, as someone who overcame TB, I know what it's like to go through this challenge, right? And so I feel that I could be a great contributing voice to decisions about tuberculosis, for example. So I really think that affected communities should be engaged more, but unfortunately, because of stigma, people who have that lived experiences are being pushed into silence, and it's actually like a vicious cycle, because when you are pushed into silence, it's actually nourishing or promoting that stigma even more. So my solution or my contribution to this is to humanize it with my story, because when there's human touch to it, it helps, right? People can relate to it, and hopefully it contributes to destigmatizing and inspires others as well.
Okay, so let's talk about your book. So I think it's the only fourth book published by a Mongolian author on Amazon. So how long did it take to write the book, and what was the idea behind it? What motivated you to write the book?
Yeah, of course. So it took me 9 months to finish writing the book. And that includes, finding the idea, narrowing it down to a specific focus, crafting my narrative, and interviewing, TB experts, policy researchers, physicians. So it took me 9 months to actually finish this project. And I even visited my former TB health clinic that I was staying at when I was sick. I met with my former TB physician, interviewed him. It was this whole 9 months was actually really liberating and very very informative project for me. And the idea behind this book is, as mentioned before, basically it's about humanizing tuberculosis and destigmatizing TB, because I really firmly believe in the power of one story, because one story can create this ripple effect, right? And hopefully people get inspired and talk about it, so there's less silence and there's less stigma. So that's the main idea behind it. And another idea is that I hope that this story doesn't just stop at TB. I hope it applies to other stigmatizing diseases and challenges in Mongolia, right? And with that, I hope to promote this idea of survivor culture. And by survivor culture, what I mean is that empowering and engaging people with lived experience. And I really hope that decision makers in Mongolian government or in international organizations understand, or like look around in their decision-making room and see that, is there anyone with lived experience in this room to contribute? Because when there is the voice from the affected communities, the solution design will be more practical, right? It will be more, it will be less abstract, and it will be more helpful to the people you're trying to help. So that's the main message behind it as well.
So will your book be published in Mongolia, or do you plan to?
Yes, totally. So currently I'm very much focused on publishing an English version and publishing it on Amazon in international market. But my goal is to also translate it into Mongolian language and publish in Mongolia as well, hopefully on World TB Day, which is March 24th in 2021. So that's my target that I'm going towards. And yeah, I'm really excited, and people have been really encouraging and really supportive, both in Mongolia and also international market. So I'm really excited.
Okay. So what is your hobby? And now, due to the pandemic, what are you doing in your free time?
Yeah, so this year, basically all my hobby time and hobby has been dedicated to writing this book. And basically it's my hobby project now, and it's been actually really great because, as I mentioned before, it's first of all helping me to process, and helping me to understand myself better and articulate my previous experiences and everything, but at the same time it's helping, hopefully will help others as well. So that has been my main hobby project, but I also recently adopted this new hobby of working out. So fitness has been one of my also projects, and I successfully lost like 28 pounds in a very healthy way. So in the future, I really hope to get my trainer certificate and also help inspire other women and girls to reach their fitness goals in a healthy and sustainable way. So that's something I'm also making it more of my hobby project as well.
Nice, well, fantastic. So the new year is around the corner, and what are your plans for 2021?
Yeah, so my biggest goal for 2021 is my book. I really want to successfully publish my book in both markets, in Mongolia and in international market on Amazon. And with this book, not just, I don't want to finish at publishing it and that's it. I want to actually use my book and leverage my story to reach more people and inspire more people so that it can help destigmatize tuberculosis and help end TB. So I hope that 2021 brings me more opportunities for partnering with other organizations focusing on TB, reaching more TB survivors and patients to inspire them. So yeah, my goal is publishing this book and reaching more people and inspiring others.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. It was wonderful to speak to you. So do you have any words for the audience?
Yes, I would like to end on two key messages. First, for anyone who is struggling with stigmatizing diseases and challenges, to speak up and to share their story to help humanize and destigmatize these diseases. I know it can be scary to share your personal story, but once you do it, you are actually more comfortable with who you are and your identity. Yeah. So I really hope they will share their stories once they are ready. And then my second message is for decision makers. As I mentioned, please engage people with lived experiences in your policy making or in your solution problem solving processes, because that's how the solutions will be more helpful and practical. And thank you so much for having me on this call, on this online talk. It was really a pleasure speaking with you, and my book comes out in late March. So I hope people will enjoy my book as much as I wrote it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And I wish you good luck for your book and for your upcoming project.
Thank you. Thank you, Anar.
Okay, thank you.
Well,